Oh man, almost time. It's almost time. Almost time. We're gonna get things going here soon. I gotta check my notes. We're gonna be live at 2 o'clock. 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Live on the radio. 95.7 FM. WELT. Yep, I'm up. Everything's golden. That's good. We like good. Okay. Fun stuff for the YouTube crowd, maybe. Feel free to chat in the live chat. So we'll more than likely read your comments on air too. So please feel free to chat in the live chat. Standard Byte radio show. Catch it on TuneIn, all that jazz too. Wherever you're at in the world, you can listen to us every Sunday, 2 to 3 p.m. I got a lot of great stories though. A lot of great stories. Smartwatches, climate change, Bill Gates, bullets, NASA, space. Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff. Oh, 3 minutes and we're live again. It's just me today. Leah has the day off, so just me. What else? Okay. Almost time. 2 minutes. Checking out, make sure everything's cool. Everything's cool. That's cool. Okay. Getting ready here. Hey everybody, you are listening to WELT 95.7 FM, Fort Wayne Community Radio. WELT comes to you from the main library downtown and via the tower at IPFW. WELT is generously funded by ESCO Communications as well as the Friends of the Library, who encourage all Allen County residents to come to any branch library and read a book. Let's start things off. You're listening to the Standard Byte. I'm your host, David. Leah has the day off. Let's get things going. Remember, you can watch us anywhere in the world via YouTube right now. We're doing the live stream. Let's go to youtube.com and search for The Standard Byte. You'll find that, and you'll find our live stream, which is live right now. Alternatively, if you're driving in your car, tune in your FM tuner to 95.7 FM, and you can listen to us there. If you're outside your car, grab your TuneIn smartphone app and search for WELT. You'll be able to hear us talk. Hear me talk today, specifically. We got a great show for you today. I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff to see what I can get through. We got everything from smartwatches to climate change to guns, NASA and space, the new Star Trek stuff, new studies, and everything like that. The coal industry going down the tube. Anyways, first I wanted to talk to you guys about a couple interesting events and sightings that happened this past weekend and will be happening today. Former President Bill Clinton was spotted by a friend of the show on Facebook. He was spotted Saturday at Pint and Slice here in Fort Wayne. That's on Calhoun Street. So former President Bill Clinton, campaigning for his wife Hillary Clinton here in Indiana, was at Pint and Slice. Also dash in. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. It's nice to see a husband and wife team working that hard. As much as I don't support their campaign, he's doing a lot of legwork for her, so congratulations on that. If you've spotted President Bill Clinton anywhere here in Fort Wayne, please do call us. Remember, you can call the show. The number is 260-424-8728. Again, that's 260-424-8728. 8728, and for our international listeners, be sure to put the country code +1 at the beginning of that, because we are number one. Also, Bernie Sanders will be in Fort Wayne tomorrow. Bernie Sanders is going to be speaking Monday, May 2nd at IPFW. The doors open at 11:30, and Bernie will be speaking, from sources in the know, starting at either 2 p.m. or 2:30. So if you want to go to a rally for Bernie Sanders here in town, head on over to IPFW. We have a link to where you can RSVP to that event on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/standardbyte, B-Y-T-E. With an I, with a Y, like computer, bytes, standard byte, yeah, okay. Well, that's on there. We've also got some Sunday spotlights on the Facebook page for those of you. Head on over to facebook.com/standardbyte and give that a like. That helps the show out a lot and gets more people seeing what we're putting down. We've got 3 Sunday spotlights here for you. First is the Bernie Sanders RSVP event information, if you want that. We also have a photo highlights of the day, Orthodox Easter and May Day. That's an interesting set of photos. And we also have, what else we have? It's here. That's right. From Vanity Fair, we have photos from the 2016 Vanity Fair Bloomberg White House Correspondents' Party. So check out some of that stuff if you want to see hoity-toity politicians dressed up in their Sunday best, going out and cutting a rug, maybe is the term they still use over there. I don't know. But that's facebook.com/standardbyte if you want to check that out. Also, we encourage everyone to head over to Twitter. We are at standardbyte on Twitter, and be sure to tweet at us during the show if you want, using the hashtag ByteMe. That's BYTEME, all one word. Hashtag ByteMe. Like I said, we got a great show for you today. I don't know where to start. It's so hard to pick, I don't know. Let's start with one that I think would make anybody's Darwin Award list. Unfortunately, fortunately, this person is still alive. The Telegraph.co.uk is reporting that a teen shoots himself in the head while taking a selfie with dad's pistol. Yeah, you heard that right. Amandeep Singhi, I don't know how to pronounce these Indian names, survived the accident but remains in serious condition. So that's a good thing, at least. In India, an Indian teenager shot himself in the head while taking a selfie with his father's revolver after he pulled the trigger instead of clicking the photograph. Whew, that's like a pat your head and rub your tummy moment right there. The bullet grazed the forehead of Amandeep, who was 15. He survived the accident on Friday night but remains in serious condition. The gun was a .32 caliber pistol lightened to Amandeep's father and was usually kept in a wardrobe in the house, according to Police Chief Manoj Kumar. Quote, the boy's father and family said that he was trying to take a selfie with his gun, said Mr. Kumar. Quote, we will speak to the boy when he is declared medically fit. We think that part of the blame obviously goes to the father for not keeping his loaded gun under lock and key at their home, unquote. Oh, this isn't even the first time this has happened, folks. I'm not lying to you. This is the standard Byte. It's not the lie cast. So far, let's see here. The incident is the latest in a spate of quote-unquote selfie accidents to afflict India, where the craze is driven by Bollywood celebrities and even Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself. Half of all recorded deaths resulting from self-taken photographs took place in India last year. So far this year, a man in Kerala was gored by an irate elephant while posing for a selfie at a temple in April, and a teenager in Chennai was killed by a train after posing near railroad tracks. Indians have also been killed falling out of boats, off cliffs, and into canals in recent months. Mumbai has set 16 quote-unquote no selfie zones at popular but dangerous locations after a tragic accident claimed 2 lives in January. India overtook the U.S. this year to become the world's second largest smartphone market with 220 million users, behind only China. It's just crazy. Put the cell phone down, kids. You're clearly more likely to kill yourself than you are to have a good time with it. I just don't understand it. I mean, I use my smartphone all the time. I've taken a few photos with it. I don't use it while I drive. I don't use it while I work. It just sits there because it's a phone. Yes, it is a magic rock that has all the information you could ever possibly want in it inside of it. But please, put the selfie stick down. You're going to do nothing but hurt yourself. Seriously. Just so you know, India's gun laws allow citizens to buy firearms with a government-issued license, although the process is expensive and difficult. There are 6 million registered guns in India and up to an estimated 40 million illegal firearms. Well, that's not surprising in a country that has 1.8 billion people in it. So it's a lot of citizens in India. A lot of people lead to a lot of crime statistically. So, moving on here, we have some information on climate change. This comes from Forbes.com. Against all odds, the 21 children ages 8 to 19 who are suing the government to protect the environment against the harm of global warming in their future have won in court. Yes, again, in a surprising ruling on Friday from the bench in the ongoing climate change case brought by these youth against the state of Washington's Department of Ecology, King County Superior Court Judge Hollis Hill ordered the Department of Ecology to promulgate a carbon emissions reduction rule by the end of 2016 and make recommendations to the state legislature on science-based greenhouse gas reductions in the 2017 legislative session. Judge Hill also ordered the Department of Ecology to consult with the young plaintiffs in advance of that recommendation, which is awesome. Now, if you don't understand what that means, let me tell you. The court in the state of Washington has decided that Washington's Department of Ecology must set a goal for a reduced carbon emissions process by the end of 2016. And before they do that, they must consult with the plaintiffs in this case. That's 21 children, ages 18 to 19, need to be consulted so that this plan either meets their requirements or takes care of what they need, which is great. Perfect. Because these are the kids we're going to be leaving this earth to, people. And we need to make sure that they live in a place that can sustain their life. Weather, food, agriculture, people, violence, all of this stuff needs to be made better for our children and our children's children. And doing the selfish thing like burning fossil fuels and all other free market capitalist nonsense really drives me up the wall, because it leaves my children in a bind. College tuition is going to be unattainable for them. Saving for anything is going to be unattainable to them. And it drives me nuts. I might have to do a piece on this. I don't know. We'll see if we do a longer piece on this some other time. The youths were forced back to court after the Department of Ecology unexpectedly withdrew the very rulemaking efforts to reduce carbon emissions that the agency told the judge it had underway in its previous court appearance. An interesting sleight of hand from the state agency. 21 plaintiffs aged 8 to 19 won in Washington State Court again on behalf of future generations of Americans in another landmark constitutional climate change case brought against the federal government and the fossil fuel industry. That's the photo here, which I'll make sure I get these photos put up on the Facebook page so you can clap for these kids. The lawsuit brought by the youth alleges that the federal government is violating the plaintiffs' constitutional and public trust rights by promoting the use of fossil fuels. The complaint explains that for over 50 years, the United States government and the fossil fuel industry have known that carbon dioxide from burning fossil fuels cause global warming and dangerous climate change, and that continuing to burn fossil fuels destabilizes the climate system. This case is one of several similar cases in federal court in Oregon and in the state courts of North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Colorado, and Massachusetts, all supported by Our Children's Trust, seeking the legal right to a healthy atmosphere and stable climate. This order was championed by Professor Mary Christina Woods in the law school at University of Oregon under the idea of the atmospheric trust litigation. This and several similar lawsuits claim that a government elected by the people and for the people has a duty to protect the natural system required for the people's survival. Just as I mentioned before, it's important that we protect the resources that we have. If we don't, who cares if it's still around at the end of our lifetime? The people that we're pumping out into this world through our Christian restrained birth control issues and lack of abortion rights aren't going to have an earth to work with. We're going to feel all high and mighty and fine and dandy because we left it and it was just fine, and then we're going to blame it on the people that come after us. It's just ridiculous. We need to blame it on ourselves, hold ourselves responsible, and hold ourselves accountable for cleaning it up. According to Wood, if both the executive and legislative branches fail in that duty, then the judicial branch must intervene. Most importantly, the courts so far have unequivocally rejected all arguments raised by the federal government and the fossil fuel industry in their motions to dismiss that seek to deny the youth their fundamental rights under the Constitution and public trust doctrine, and claim that the government has no duty to protect essential natural resources such as air and oceans. That's interesting. The court's not having it, guys. The federal government and the fossil fuel industry are both pushing to have this thrown out, because they can make so much money screwing us over. It's that simple. And they don't want it. We can't stand it, and they want it. So they've been trying to push it out, and the courts have said no. Instead, the court found that the federal government is indeed subject to the public trust doctrine. Public trust doctrine asserts that the government is a trustee of the natural resources that we depend on for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For over 200 years, the courts have affirmed this concept in various ways. So yeah, step up, Fed, and do the job we've elected you to do, which is protect our country and our world to make sure that we have the resources we need to live in it. In granting, let's see here. Where was I at? Most dismiss these cases as nonsense that will be thrown out of court and will never end up causing any significant change. But the fact that they keep successfully moving through the court system belies such causal kiss-off. And the policy and financial ramifications of success will be significant. In granting the plaintiffs a remedy, Judge Hill noted the extraordinary circumstances of global warming, saying, quote, "This is an urgent situation. These kids can't wait." The court discussed the catastrophic impacts of climate destabilization globally, particularly the loss of low-lying land like Florida and Bangladesh, The court explained that while it has no jurisdiction outside of Washington state, it did have jurisdiction over the Department of Ecology and would order the agency to comply with the law and do its part to address the climate crisis. So that's great. Yeah, good on these kids for pushing for their future and the safety of their future. These are 21 different kids, ages 8 to 19. I know I wasn't doing this kind of advocacy when I was 8 or 19, or anywhere in between. Anyways, how do you feel about this climate change? Do you think that the public trust should be extended to the government, or do you think the government should stay out of it? Give us a call at 260-424-8728, and I'll argue the point with you. I think we know how I feel about it. I went off about fracking before. And what else did I go off on? I went off on Nixon and the drug war. We're going to be doing more pieces like that. But feel free to give us a call at 260-424-8728 and talk about any of the articles you hear me talk about today. Moving on, smartwatches are exploding. At least the sales are. And Apple is continuing to dominate. This story comes from Business Insider. And smartwatches are a kind of a Marmite product, he says. Some people love them, others just don't see the point. The wearable devices are still small fry compared to smartphones, but the market is slowly warming to them. Case in point, last quarter, smartwatch sales are triple what they were a year ago. That's according to new data from research firm Strategy Analytics. It estimates that in Q1, quarter one of 2016, there were 4.2 million global smartwatch shipments. That's up from 1.3 million in quarter one of 2015. That's fiscal quarters, if anyone's interested in business stuff. Launch of the Apple Watch has helped with adoption considerably. The Cupertino tech giant's wearable came out in April 2015, the start of quarter two, and has reliably dominated sales ever since. To be honest with you, there's a chart here from Strategy Analytics. Global vendor smartwatch shipments. I'll break this down for you in millions of units. So Apple in quarter one of 15, 0, because they hadn't really come out. They came out in Q2. Quarter four of 2015, they had 5.1 million units sold. By quarter one of 2016, it was down to 2.2 units. Samsung, comparatively, the next biggest smartwatch supplier, quarter one of 2015, they were kind of first out on the market with their Samsung Gear, or their Galaxy Gear system. 0.4, so 400,000 units roughly sold in quarter one of 2015. In Q4 of 15, they had 1.3 million units sold, dropping back down to about 600,000 units in Q1 of 2016. So crazy. Global smartwatch sales, though, if you want to slice a percentage of the market share, Apple has market share. Apple has, excuse me, this is fresh info for me. Apple has as of quarter four of 2015, the last quarter of last year, 63% of the market share, with Samsung coming in at 16% and all others totaling a 21%. Quarter one, it's come back a little bit. It's come back for the others, I should say. Apple is down from 63% down to 52%, 52.4% in quarter one. Samsung going from 16% down to 14.3%, and the other smartwatch suppliers up from 21 to 33.3% of total market share. So you can see it fluctuates a lot. But and to put it into perspective, Apple is still outselling Samsung more than 3 times over. South Korean electronics company is in a very distant second place, selling 0.6 million units to Apple's 2.2 million in Q1 of 2016. Yeah, crazy stuff, right? I don't know. Do any of you have a smartwatch? If so, what kind do you have? I'm still in the market. I'm an old school guy. I like my mechanical watches and automatics. I am kind of a watch nut. Right now, I'm currently wearing a Seiko 5 Series automatic 21 jewel movement. So a great watch, a little fast on the hands, but if you want to watch a smartwatch, a Apple Watch, a Samsung Gear, any of the knockoffs, give us a call at 260-424-8728. discuss that with me, because I'm interested in the smartwatch thing. I don't know about. I was thinking Moto, getting a Moto or something like that from Motorola. I don't know. They sell them at the Sprint store where I have my contract through, so I might check that out. But it's cost money. Let me know how much it costs too. 260-424-8728. Remember, you can talk to us on the YouTube live stream as well. Talk to us about what kind of watch you got there. Smartwatch, if you've got one, or if you're looking at one. Why not, right? Don't forget, tweet at us. That's twitter.com/standardbyte. You can find us there. Give us a follow and use the hashtag ByteMe, and I'll do my best to respond to those tweets, either during the show or after the show. So, what else we got? Video output on my stream is pretty low, so I'll do my best to see how that goes. I want to. Oh yeah, Bill Gates is in the news again. He has his summer reading picks for people. Apparently, he's got this book club or something. He's got 6 different books that he wants you to hear about, and yeah. So why don't we hear from Bill Gates himself on this issue? This comes from the series he has called Gates Notes.
Every summer, I try to do a little extra reading. Here's a few books I've read recently that you might enjoy. On Immunity by Eula Biss. She explains the history of vaccination, why children who don't get vaccinated can even affect those who are vaccinated. She's a very good writer. I wish I could write as nicely as she writes. Should We Meet by Václav Smil? It's provocative the way he does the title, as though passing the responsibility to the reader, where we know it's pretty hard for people to give up meat. There are books that touch on this topic that don't have numbers in them, but this is Smil. You are going to get the numbers. You might even get a few sentences in between the numbers. How to Lie with Statistics by Daryl Huff. Being able to understand what you're looking at and being willing to say, hey, where did that come from? Is that accurate? It's a quick read. It's got a lot of good examples in it. It's a trip to the past, even though the basic points it makes are still as valid today. What If by Randall Munroe. It's a very clever way of getting you to think about various scientific things going on. This idea of when you say glass half empty, do you mean empty as in perfect vacuum? And, all of a sudden, if there was a glass sitting there where you put the water on the top and the vacuum on the bottom and the vacuum on the top and the water on the bottom, this is clever. Those are the kind of questions that somebody with a good mind who's trying to figure out if they really understand, that's the kind of question you should ask yourself. Hyperbole and a Half by Ali Broche. She's pretty creative and humorous about making fun of herself and revealing her inner thoughts. There was one thing about the dog where, this is one that I told Melinda to read, where the dog's getting confused where they're moving. And so she's trying to simulate what the dog's thinking. And her dog, maybe it's true, it's one of the most inept, impossible dogs to ever take care of. And finally, The Magic of Reality by Richard Dawkins. In science, we're all kids. I mean, a good scientist is somebody who's redeveloped the chain of reasoning of why we know what we know from scratch many times, just to see where there's holes or alternate possibilities. It can never hurt to reread these things and think through what you're learning. We can observe way more stuff than you'd imagine, and we've made more sense out of the stuff we can observe than you can imagine. So quite a range there in terms of fun to learn, fun to know about. I hope you enjoy them as much as I did.
Thanks, Bill. We appreciate your recommendations. If you want to get the rest of the recommendations for Bill Gates's books you should be reading this summer, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/standardbyte, and you'll find that as one of our as the 4th Sunday Spotlight on our list there on the page. So check that out and get reading. Once again, that's On Immunity by Eula Biss, Should We Eat Meat by Václav Smil, How to Lie with Statistics by Daryl Huff, Hyperbole and a Half by Ali Broche, The Magic of Reality by Richard Dawkins, and What If by Randall Munroe. Now, he's got other comments and other things to talk about these books to give you some ideas on what they're about. So head on over to facebook.com/standardbyte and check out that story. Alrighty. Moving on, we've got some other great stories here. SpaceX is back in the news. Let's talk. Now, this comes from Fox Business, and I'm not typically a faux news supporter because I personally don't think Fox News is news. Mostly fear-mongering, but once in a while, they drop a quality story in our lap, and part of this is quality. They did some actual reporting by asking actual questions this time. So the title reads, "With or without NASA, SpaceX is going to Mars." Start the countdown. In just 2 years, SpaceX is blasting off to Mars. Began with a tweet. On Wednesday, April 27th, SpaceX posted 2 photos on Twitter announcing plans to send a Red Dragon space capsule to Mars as soon as 2018. That, of course, got everyone wondering what the heck a quote-unquote Red Dragon was. And so, in due course, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk clarified that the capsule in question will be SpaceX's new Dragon 2 space capsule. This fact was then further clarified when SpaceX added that the Dragon 2 will be equipped with a Super Draco propulsive landing system. Oh man, they're going to land the rocket on Mars, or at least a capsule on Mars using their propulsion landing system, which we've seen demonstrated on the open ocean where they landed one of their reusable rockets on a barge in the middle of the Pacific. So, of course, even then we had questions after everything was explained. Fox Business reports, why is SpaceX going to Mars? What will it do when it gets there? And is SpaceX going alone? Or is this some as yet unannounced NASA mission that it will be fulfilling? Seeing as Neil deGrasse Tyson has assured us that SpaceX would have to be quote-unquote delusional to try to go to Mars without help from NASA. This is Mars. Don't try to get there on your own, says Dr. Tyson. We've got questions too. To try and clarify some of these questions, SpaceX is laser focused on putting humans on Mars, and the sooner the better. In fact, Elon Musk himself has stated a 2025 deadline for his first manned mission to Mars, opining that, quote, 9 years from now seems like a long time. That said, there's a lot of prep work that must be done in the meantime. To name just a few likely issues, the company will want to survey the terrain and pick a landing site, preferably one with access to resources useful for sustaining life and producing rocket fuel. The company will also probably want to prepare the beachhead, so to speak, pre-landing such useful items as a prefab habitat, fuel, food, and water for astronauts to use upon arrival. All this will require a series of unmanned missions to Mars before the first manned missions can take place. The first such unmanned mission will be in 2018, launching probably in April or May. It will begin with a launch of SpaceX's new Falcon Heavy lift vehicle, due to make its maiden voyage in November of this year, and end with a Dragon 2 landing vertically atop its own rocket exhaust on the Red Planet. Dragon 2 test fires its Super Draco landing jets, in an image on that story as well. That comes from Fox Business. Then they go on to whine about the cost of everything. It doesn't really matter what the cost is, guys. Going to space is one of the best investments we can make. The return on investment in NASA has been proven time and time again to be at least 6 or 7 to 1. So every cent you put into NASA, you get 6 or 7 cents back in usable technology, in research, in all kinds of things. NASA knows what to do with their money. Unfortunately, they just don't have enough of it. And it's sickening to me that we can't even fund our most profitable organization. We give plenty of money to soldiers in war, which doesn't gain us anything, except more conflict and more enemies and more nonsense we have to deal with. And instead of doing that, we should be pumping that money into NASA. NASA's budget is less than 0.01% of the national budget. Crank it up a little bit, 5%, something. Geez, we could be to freaking Jupiter by now. It drives me nuts. But anyways, it doesn't really matter what it means for investors. Fox Business goes the way of the dodo once they get to the second half of their articles, man. I can't stand it. Anyways, let's see what else here. Let's skip ahead. I'm going to... yeah, so I got a story about Star Trek, but I'm going to keep that in the back burner. Let's do this one. A new study ponders if Earth is surrounded by extinct ancient civilizations. You never know. This comes from uprocks.com. The search for extraterrestrial life seems to be an increasingly fruitless task for us mere human mortals as our technology advances and our understanding of our universe increases. The universe is amazingly large, featuring nearly endless star systems, planets, and chances for intelligent life to spring up. The only problem is that physics has more or less told us that it'd be nearly impossible for us to be able to reach out far enough to find anyone else. According to Discovery, a new study posits that from all the information that we've been able to gather about our surroundings and our universe, we are most likely surrounded by extinct civilizations. The researchers dubbed this new research an archaeological form of the famous Drake equation, which laid out the early blueprint for searching for extraterrestrial life and the probability of it existing. According to this new research, the chance of intelligent life existing is 1 in 10 billion trillion, with the numbers in our own galaxy being a bit more positive, with only 1 in 60 billion. These new numbers sound desolate. Remember just how huge the universe is. But the problem is that if these numbers sound desolate, don't freak out. Remember just how huge the universe is. But the problem is that societies have probably risen and fallen, considering that our known universe is believed to be 13 billion years old. Those 13 billion years most likely spawned intelligent life, and that intelligent life has probably come and gone. It doesn't mean that it won't happen again, but it means that we could also be existing in a graveyard. Science fiction and horror have long harped on these points, with H.P. Lovecraft introducing the world to the great old ones, namely the embodiment of ancient evil that was Cthulhu. Cthulhu, residing on the sunken ancient city of Ryla, in the South Pacific, was a constant source of subconscious grief and anxiety for humanity who were unable to understand such an ancient evil. The BioWare franchise of Mass Effect has touched on the ancient spacefaring civilizations and their own culling thanks to the ancient race of sentient machines spawned to bring order to mortals who overreached into the stars in the Reapers. So yeah, who knows? Do you think we're alone out there in the universe, or do you think we're going to find someone? Then again, do you possibly think that maybe the men in black are actually hiding something? The movie with Will Smith, Rip Torn, and what's his name? Tommy Lee Jones, was based in part on true events, according to some say. Give us a call, 260-424-8728, or chat with us on the YouTube live stream, or tweet at us using the hashtag ByteMe to let us know what you think about that kind of stuff. Is it something that would, is it something that seems reasonable? Do you think we're going to come across alien life, or do you think it's going to be just, is it just going to be us for the remainder of our lifetimes and multiple generations to come? I don't know. I think we've probably had contact with extraterrestrials, and that we probably will again in the recent future. Might have to do some research surrounding that and find out what people are seeing. All right, back to Star Trek now. Star Trek executive producer details why the new TV series will seriously excite Trekkies. This comes from Uprocks as well. While Star Wars fans may have gotten the perfect gift from Disney and J.J. Abrams in The Force Awakens, Star Trek fans haven't been quite as lucky. The long-run beloved geek franchise has a long storied history which ranges from good to bad. While the similarly handled Star Trek films of J.J. Abrams have been entertaining, they felt a bit more in spirit like a lens-flared Star Wars film with Star Trek characters, but have been able to introduce a new generation to the world of Starfleet, Klingons, and the USS Enterprise. As much as I got to enjoy this, written by... Who's this written by? It doesn't matter. It's on Uprocks. As much as I got to enjoy explaining the similar plot points from Into Darkness to The Wrath of Khan to Friends, they seemed disinterested in actually watching the classic because of already seeing an incredibly similar, more modern film. The biggest issue is that while Star Trek films have been important and fun, the franchise has always thrived on the smaller screen, where stories could span multi-episode arcs or be nearly wrapped up in 42-plus minutes. While fans in the 80s and 90s were treated to The Next Generation, the fantastic Deep Space Nine, and later Voyager, the aughts featured the ever-planned Enterprise, leading to the franchise disappearing from, or ever-panned Enterprise, leading to the franchise disappearing from the small screen altogether. Now, after over 10 years of not having a Star Trek series running, CBS decided to bring a new series into the world, existing in the same continuity as the original series. Which, that'll be interesting, because I personally, I'm a DS9 fan and a TNG fan. I'm not a TOS guy. I think it's overacted and corny as all get out, but that's what my wife enjoys it for. Of course, this new series is set to be digital only, trying to lure fans into the CBS All Access service, which has raised some eyebrows. Newsrama spoke with executive producer for the Star Trek series, Trevor Roth, and he seems to understand that Star Trek is incredibly important to its fans and what the franchise has always been about, the characters and their journeys. Quote, "But I think at the end of the day, there are certain tenets of Star Trek that make it what it is. I think that continuing those tenets and creating a cast that are truly relatable to people, regardless of their species and alien makeup, for those characters to go through journeys that are relevant to people, for us to create a show that is a smart show and something that we can be proud of, yet still entertain people. Because yes, Star Trek has always featured cool technology, crazy alien tense situations, or crazy aliens and tense situations, but what really made every iteration of Star Trek truly shine were the characters. How else could Worf turn from a sour grunt into one of the franchise's most beloved characters? We got to see him grow through the Next Generation in Deep Space Nine. He was much more than just a Klingon in a Starfleet uniform, but he was a man torn between the tradition of his people and the belief that there can be peace among the stars." Interesting. How do you feel about Star Trek being digital only? If you've got any comments about that, feel free to chat with us on the YouTube live stream. I'll read your comments on the air. Tweet at us at ByteMe using that hashtag, and also feel free to call us at 260-424-8728. Once again, that's 260-424-8728. I am here. The line is open, and all you have to do is call. All right, let's keep going here. What else do we got? Oh yeah, this was an interesting piece from Neuroscience News. I like the sciencey stuff. I like the brain stuff. Brain and science and brain and brain science. So from Neuroscience News comes an article titled "Sleep-Wake Cycle Controlled by Salts in the Brain." This was published on April 30th. Danish, I'm going to get these words right one day, folks. Excuse me. Danish research is behind a new epoch-making discovery, which may prove decisive to future brain research. The level of salts in the brain plays a critical role in whether we are asleep or awake. This discovery may be of great importance to research on psychiatric diseases such as schizophrenia and convulsive fits from lack of sleep, as well as post-anesthetization confusion, according to Professor Maken Nedergaard. Salts in our brain decide whether we're asleep or awake. For the first time, researchers have shown that the levels of salt in our body and brain differ depending on whether we are asleep or awake. A new study from the University of Copenhagen reveals that by influencing the level of salts, it is possible to control a mouse's sleep-wake cycle. The research has just been published in the scientific journal called Science. Quote, "These salts play a much larger and much more decisive role than hitherto imagined. The discovery reveals a completely new layer of understanding of how the brain functions. First and foremost, we learn more about how sleep is controlled. It may, however, also open up a better future understanding of... I'm going to get it. Oh, man. What a fun day, guys. Leah's not here to make fun of me, so I can screw up as much as I want. Oh, it also opens up for a better future understanding of why some people suffer convulsive fits when staying awake all through the night, said Professor Macon Nedergaard from the Center for Basic and Translational Neuroscience at the University of Copenhagen. Nature's simplicity deceives brain research. Another part of this article. The researchers have used mice to test whether injecting salt into the brain enables control of the mouse's sleep-wake cycle, independently of the so-called neuromodulators. Neuromodulators are compounds such as, for example, adrenaline, which plays a decisive role in our waking up every morning. The study shows that adrenaline and other neuromodulators change the level of salt surrounding the neurons, and that the salt balance then decides whether the neurons are sensitive to stimulation in the shape of a touch. When we are awake, the salt balance makes neurons highly sensitive to stimulation, as opposed to the salt balance in a brain during sleep, where the levels of salt makes it harder to activate the neurons. Researchers have shown that the level of salts in our body and brain differ depending on whether we are asleep or awake. That's an image for that article. I don't know why I keep reading the captions. It's not helpful. You can't see the pictures. Only I can see the pictures. Quote, it's a much simpler than previously believed in brain research. The research conducted used to focus only on the brain's neural activity as a means of mapping and analyzing complicated processes, such as being asleep or awake. Our study shows that the brain uses something as simple as changing the level of salts to control whether we are asleep or awake. This discovery reveals that studying only neurons in order to understand brain activity is not enough. We must include all of the supportive cells, especially the so-called astrocytes, which regulate the level of salts in the brain. The brain is more than a group of neurons that function like a computer. The fact that the brain needs 7 to 8 hours of sleep to function well on a daily basis reveals that there's much more we need to understand aside from neurocomputation, Professor Macon Nedergaard concludes. So what do you think about this? I mean, if you got an opinion, call us, 260-424-8728. Otherwise, it's just going to be me rambling on the radio for an hour. I know y'all are listening out there because I hear from you guys all the time. 260-424-8728. Doesn't matter. I've still got a bunch of stuff to talk about. We're going to end a little bit early so that 90s Takeover can get into the studio and do their stuff, so and get set up to go. Because I don't want to trample on 2 live shows all at the same time. So it's close to an hour, but it's not quite an hour, and that's no big deal. But we're going to keep things moving along for you. You know, it's not looking so good for the coal industry, and I'll talk to you about that in a second. But we've also got some astrophysics stuff, as well as, if I have time, some fun articles that I found rather tongue-in-cheek of underwater extraterrestrials and stuff like that. I don't know if I talked about that last show or not, but there's plenty of stuff we don't get to. Oh yeah, I could talk about that story too. I don't know, it's just you and me, guys, chatting around. But anyways, the coal industry, it's not looking so good for them. Able to imagine a single particle produced billions of light years away arriving here on Earth intact and uninterfered with. A particle postcard of a very different time and place. Neutrinos also happen to be extremely powerful, with energies in order